Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Sandra and you're watching The Schwowin's Nest. Today I'm bringing you a Timber Tuesday Christmas edition where all of my projects are created with wood. The first project is using these three little wooden pieces. I'm going to cut one of them down so it's just a little bit shorter than the others, and I'm just going to use my handsaw and miter box as you see me doing here. So I decided to create some cute little decor with these sticks of wood. I'm going to create a Santa first, which is what I'm doing right now. And I'm just going to leave it very simple. I'm just going to paint the top portion of it. That first section is for his hat. Now I'm taking some white and I'm going to draw in his fluffy brim of the hat just by making some little arcs into the paint and then creating a straight line next to the red. Moving on to his beard, I'm just going to draw two little arcs on the opposite direction for his mustache, and then I'm going to just paint in a little whimsical beard that kind of goes down to a little bit of a point. But you can do whatever you want for his beard. You could even just do it straight across if you so desired. Moving back to the red, and you can see here that I'm switching out my paintbrushes because I don't want to have to wash one in between all the time. I always have a multitude of different sizes of brushes, and that just makes it more convenient for me. So now I'm just going to kind of very gently go around the edges of my beard, and then I will add a little bit more of a belly to him with the red as well. I'm going to continue on with the red to make the rest of his coat and his pants, and I'm just leaving a little strip there for his belt. Then I'm going to use a black paint, fill in his belt, and fill in some boots. Taking the smaller piece of wood, I'm going to make this my little snowman. And as I was painting this, I realized I should have painted on the back side of this and left that little nice wood grain on the back so the back looks pretty. But oh well, do as I say and not as I do. Anyway, I'm going to give him a good coat of some white chalk paint and then I'm going to set him aside to dry. My little snowman is dry, so I'm using some black paint just to create a little scarf, and that will also then divide his head from his body. And using the end of my paintbrush, I'm just dipping it into the black paint and giving him three cute little buttons. Using the rounded paintbrush end as my guide, I'm just going to press it down and create these cute little boots for my snowman. He's going to get some eyes the same way as I did his buttons, just using a smaller paintbrush. Then I'm going to use a little bit of the brown that I have left over on one of my other brushes and just build him a little carrot nose. Using a fine tip Sharpie marker, I'm just going to give him a little crooked grin. Using some burnt umber acrylic paint, I'm just going across the bottom, creating a stripe, which will be the tree trunk for this little Christmas tree. I've got some hunter green acrylic paint, which I'm going to use to color in the Christmas tree branches. I'm just going to actually color the whole thing solid, but I'm making really sure not to get anything on the edges. That's why I'm kind of dragging my paintbrush out from the middle to the edges. I'm going to use the end of my paintbrush again, and this time dipping it into some red. I'm going to create some cute little ornaments for the tree. To get different sized ornaments, I'm going to dip and then go onto the Christmas tree a couple of times as you see me doing, because that will just give you a little bit of a smaller dot. Of course, I need to make these a little distressed looking, so I'm just going to use a small paintbrush, dip it in some white, and I'm going to pull it up from the edges of my tree. So that will just give me a little bit of distressing along the edge. I'll probably do a little bit more on the corners like you see me doing, and then just continue on down to the bottom of the green portion. I'm doing the same for my little Santa, but I'm only going to hit the red and black areas. I'm going to come back with a different brush and hit the white areas with some black, and that's what the snowman will get too. You will see that on my little Santa here, I did two little black eyes and a cute little red nose. Here I'm giving the snowman's scarf and his little boots some distressing with the white, and then I'll flip over to the black and do the same thing on all of the white edges. I thought my tree could use a star on the top, so I'm just using one of these little wooden ones that I picked up in a bag of 10 from Dollarama, and I'm just going to leave it the natural wood color. To assemble these and get them to stand up, I'm going to use another little piece of wood that is the same as these. I'm going to put the Christmas tree towards the back. The snowman will be towards the back as well on the other side, and I'm going to put Santa sort of front and center, moving him up just a little wee bit in front of the other two. So I toyed with the idea of leaving this just plain, but then I decided against that, and I'm just going to glue some greenery sprigs. These are kind of like little evergreen sprigs to the back of the sign. I'm going to add some pine cones and some little red pip berries, and this guy is finished. I'd like to thank Turquoise for sponsoring today's video. They were kind enough to send me a couple of items from their furniture cover shop, and I want to share those with you now. This is their website on Amazon, and it's available in the US and in Canada. I love the fact that there are straps on the back of these to hold them in place. I do have a different type of sofa cover that just falls apart all the time, so I'm really glad about having those straps along the back. I got an oversized sofa in the color taupe, which is what you see right now. I also got a chair cover, and I'm going to show you how it looks on my sofa down in my family room in just a couple of minutes. The other thing that I love about these is that they're 100% waterproof. They are really soft and supple, and they don't move. The backing on them is kind of, I wouldn't say sticky, but it's just, they don't move. So when you sit on it, everything stays in place. You might have to just smooth it out a little bit depending on how squishy your couch is. And the other thing is, look how many different colors they have available. I really wanted to get some of the blue colors, but I decided to just go neutral this time and go with the beige and the gray. This is the picture of the couch I have in my family room. I think it's going to be perfect for the slip covers. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take all of my pillows off. I always have an assortment of pillows on every sofa. They are just meant for decor, but a lot of times they end up on the floor when people come down and have a seat. So I'm just going to leave them off for now. And then I'm just going to fluff this up. It's got a little bit of some squishiness happening here. So I'm just going to fluff everything up, put all the cushions in place really well before I start putting the couch cover on. I'm also going to pull it out from the wall a little bit just so it gives me a little bit extra room for putting the strap on the back. Here's the sofa slipcover. This is how it comes packaged, and I love these little zipper pouches. They're so good for organizing things later on once you've taken your product out. I'm going to unzip this and open it up. It probably could use a little bit of a steam, a little bit of wrinkling here and there. Let's take a look at the straps. These are nice and thick and wide, and they're adjustable with a little pull there, so you can make sure that they fit nice and snug behind your sofa. Now I'm going to find the top of it and then just start working it on. I'm just going to put some music on for you so you can see how these go on. Really super simple. They've got the nice arm covers as well, and I'm just going to do some tucking and spreading and working it until I get it right the way I want it. Here's the strap, and all you have to do is just loop it around the back of your sofa. I didn't even have to adjust the length of mine. It worked out perfectly just the way it was, but it is adjustable if you have something larger or something smaller. This sofa cover is actually going to be heading to my cottage in a couple of weeks because I do have a larger sofa there that is a little bit on the old side, has a few stains on it, and I thought this would be a great protector for it so I can keep it a little bit longer up there. So it is a little bit bigger for this couch here, but I still think it looks amazing. I love how the fabric feels really soft. It has this diamond pattern on it. The color is perfect. It's exactly what I was looking for. And here you can see where the straps are grabbing the back of the cushions and the back of the couch. And everything just fits really snugly. You can tuck this in as much as you want. If you only want a tiny bit hanging down the front, you can do that too. You can also take that cover and tuck it underneath your cushions if you don't want it hanging over. I will have the turquoise store link and the links to the products I received down in my description box. Please make sure to go check out their website on Amazon. They have some amazing products, and I've got to say, I am really impressed with the quality of this furniture throw and the price. Their prices are very reasonable. And on top of that, as I said earlier, their color options are amazing. I have a few more pieces of furniture up at my cottage that I would love to cover with furniture throws, and I have a feeling I'm going to be doing some shopping on the Turquoise site. So go check it out and let me know what you think. For this DIY, I'm going to start by taking two of these larger tumbling tower blocks and glue two of them together. Then I'm just going to set those aside. This is a scrap piece of wood from one of the Dollar Tree Easter signs. I'm just trying to get some of the rest of the paper off of it, just so it'll have a smooth finish at the end. I'm going to use this red and black buffalo check scrapbook paper that I picked up at Michael's, and I'm going to cut a piece to cover the front and the back of this board. To glue them on, I'm just going to use a glue stick and just put lots of it on and then put the paper on, smooth it out, and there won't be any wrinkles or bubbles. I have been using glue sticks with paper for a while now, and I really love the effect of it, much better than Mod Podge. Once the glue's had a chance to dry, I'm just going to take my craft knife and just cut off any of the excess all the way around and making sure I get both sides of the paper. I created two designs, one for the front and one for the back, and they will be available as free printables on my website. I cut them out using Cricut Smart Vinyl, which I love now because it's just so much easier to not have to worry about a cutting mat. And I'm using the Dollar Tree transfer tape, but I did fuzz it a little bit because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't too sticky, that it would take some of the paper off, and it worked really well for this project. Now that I've got my designs, I'm just going to take a sanding block from the Dollar Tree and just very gently go around the edges of the paper just to rough it up a little bit and give it more of a distressed look. After I put these decals on, I thought I should have done a few little snowflakes as well, but then I took my chalk paint marker and I just started doing dots on the paper, kind of just sporadically, not in any pattern or anything, just to give it the look of some snow falling. For the other side, I decided to do just little bunches of dots. This made it look like kind of snowballs, but almost like little stars. And I made them different sizes and just, again, put them all over, not in any particular pattern, but just made it look really pretty. Using hot glue, I'm just going to put some on the bottom of the sign and place it in the middle of the two tumbling tower blocks that are laying on the wide side. Then I'll repeat the process for the other tumbling tower blocks. Then I'll have some on the top and some on the bottom, and it'll kind of make it look like a pennant sign. I wanted the wood to look a little bit more rustic, so I'm just taking a wash with burnt umber and some water, and I'm just going to brush it all over the blocks. I didn't think I was going to add anything to this sign, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought it needed a little something. So I grabbed some of these little frosted pine cones that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I don't know if they're available this year, but I did have a whole bunch of them from my stash last year. I added two larger ones to the top and then added a tiny little bit of greens in between each of the pine cones. And I really love this sign. I think it's one of my favorites. This last project is using one of these long planks that you can get at the Dollar Tree and two of the larger size tumbling tower blocks. I'm just marking off where I need to cut on the long end and also on the short end. Using a utility knife and the square from the Dollar Tree, which comes in super handy, I'm just going to go ahead and score this about 4 or 5 times, and then I'll be able to just snap it loose. Using hot glue, I'm going to attach the tumbling tower blocks to the sides of the plank. It would have been helpful if I would have put two planks together. It was a little tricky trying to get some of that glue not to show so much. So I think if I was creating this project again, I would use two of the Dollar Tree planks and just glue them together just to make a more solid base. Then I'm going to just add some of these half round beads and make little feet for my little tray. I started by giving this a couple of coats of my white chalk paint, but in the end, I do something different to it. So if you like the white, go for it. If not, just leave the wood as is because we're going to end up staining it at the end anyway. I've got two of these wooden Christmas trees that I picked up from Michael's, and I think they were $1.50 each, so I thought that was a really good deal. I'm just taking some of this spackling and filling in the holes on both of them. I've got a color in here called Hauser Green. I don't know what that means, but it's kind of a moss color. I'm adding some water to it because I want to create a wash or a stain out of it, and that's what I'm going to use to apply onto the Christmas trees. I'm going to do the front and the back of the trees, making sure I get the sides too. This is probably one of my favorite colors of green. I use it all year round on my projects. For the little tree trunks, I did the same thing, just using some of my burnt umber, and this paintbrush was still wet, so I just dipped it into the lid and put a little bit of a wash on the tree trunks. These are the same wooden stars that I used on my first project, and I'm just going to stain a couple of them front and back because I'm going to put this on the top of each of the trees. So here's the mess I made with this white bottom tray portion. I took that green and I dry brushed it, and man, was it ugly. So this is where the stain came into play. I'm using a walnut stain and a dry brush, and I'm going to let some of the white peek through, but I'm pretty much going to cover all of this with the brown stain, which is what I should have done when the wood was still in its raw state. It would have looked a lot better, but I'm still happy with how it turned out. I'm just going to use hot glue to apply my stars, and then I'm going to hot glue the Christmas trees to the side of this little tray, and I have created a napkin holder if you haven't already guessed. This will be a really cute addition to my Christmas table this year. I always have tons of scrap wood because I forage for this stuff. These cut off pieces were already in this shape. They were from the builder at our cottage who's doing some work for us. So I definitely grabbed a whole bunch of these because I knew I would be able to make them into some Christmas trees. I'm taking some hot glue and some wood glue and I'm going to glue these together and then just set them aside to dry. I've got 3 of them, so I'll do the same thing for all 3. Instead of painting these, I decided to give them some stain. I'm starting off with this burnt umber and water. I just put this in a little container that you can get here from the Dollar Tree. It's one of those squeeze bottles. And I mix it up and then I have a whole bunch and I don't have to mix each time I want to use it. I'm just going to go in the direction of the wood grain to make sure that these all stain really nicely. I'm going to go all the way around front, back, and sides. For the next tree, I'm going to use a hunter green acrylic paint and I'm mixing it with 2 parts water to 1 part paint and just stirring it up really well and you've got yourself a stain. With the green, I'm going to have to kind of go over it a few times just to make sure that I get the color that I want. It turns out really nice when you first put it on, but then it does lighten up a little bit. Rather than adding some more paint, I just added a little bit more of the stain to each side. Another way you can do a stain really easily is just by spritzing some water onto your wood and then dipping your paintbrush directly into the paint that's not thinned down at all. And then when you brush it on, you do get a stain effect. I put a little bit too much water on this first one, but I was able to just pull that around the sides and give this a beautiful whitewashed stain look. I had some larger birch logs that I cut into some tree trunks, gave each of the trees one of them a little bit different sizes, and now I'm just going to add a simple embellishment to the top of each of the tree. This is a little wreath that came in a 4-pack. I believe it was from Michael's. It came in a stash of things that one of my viewers sent me, so thank you very much, Kimberly. And what I'm going to do for the other ones is just add a couple of stars to the green tree and then add some pine cones to the white tree. I just love using little red pip berries in my Christmas decor, so I'm just going to add a couple to the stars and then a couple to the pine cones. I really love how rustic these trees turned out. Perfect for my own farmhouse decor. I think I'm going to be keeping these for sure. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of my current subscribers and my new subscribers. I am really close to my goal of 40,000 subscribers by the end of 2022, and I think almost about 300 away. If you like what you see so far, I would love it if you could support my channel by hitting that red button too. Project number 2 is working with these wood frames. I have a matching pair, and this first one I'm going to be painting it with a couple of coats of cocoa bean chalk paint by Rust-Oleum. I wanted this to have a deep brown color because what I want to do with this one is distress it because it's got a lot of little ridges and bumps, and I think it will look really great. The second frame I'm going to paint with a couple of coats of black paint because I'm doing a little bit of a different design in each of them. Okay, so next I'm going to apply a glue stick to the original backing of the frame. I printed off this green and white buffalo check and I'm going to just glue that right on top. I like to put things on backwards this way so I can see where the print is going to start and end. What I'm doing now is just taking my knife and trimming off any of the excess paper. I took this wood paper to my Cricut and I cut out a Christmas tree shape. And I'm going to be gluing that right on top of the white and green buffalo check. And I think this is going to turn out amazing. I really love the look of it so far. Again, I'm just using a glue stick because it's going to be behind the glass and it will be held in place really well. I used my craft knife one more time to trim off any of the excess paper. I cleaned the original glass really well, put it back in the frame, and now I'm just going to use hot glue and put a bead all the way along the edge, making sure that it has contact with both the glass and the wood. Then I'd simply put the picture inside the frame, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my glue gun and just put a bead all the way around, making sure that it has contact with the cardboard as well as the wood. And that will keep it really secure. I finished off by painting the back of the frame as well once the glue was dry, just so you wouldn't see any of the lighter wood color when you hang it up. I started out using some sandpaper but didn't like the effect of that, so I just grabbed my Cricut scraper and scraped off the paint wherever I wanted it to be distressed. I used the same technique on the black frame, just using some different colors, and I think both of these frames turned out absolutely gorgeous. I think I'm going to be keeping these and displaying them in my home for the Christmas season. This next project turned out super cute. I found this ornament wood cutout from Michael's last year, and I'm just going to take my burnt umber stain again and give it a nice staining front and back. I'm going to paint the top part of the ornament with some red chalk paint, and again, I'm going to do all over it, front, sides, and back. This block is just one of those signs that you can get at the Dollar Tree. They're these really long ones and they have different sayings on them, but they are not real wood. So I needed to take my antiquing wax to give this a more of a stained look because the burnt umber would probably not give it what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the antiquing wax and then just wipe off the excess. I found some tiny little white wooden letters at a dollar store near my cottage in the summertime. And what I'm going to do is just use some of the Starbond glue to glue them down because I didn't want any of the hot glue oozing out everywhere. I've already got them placed how I want them to look. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the glue and get them all put down. The Starbond glue comes in a variety of thicknesses. This is the medium thickness, which gives me a little bit more working time. And then there's the accelerator spray that hardens the glue in 3 seconds and your project is 100% set. Both of my pieces have had a really good chance to dry. I'm adding some hot glue to the bottom of the ornament and I'm going to place it a little bit farther to the back, not 100% all the way to the back. I just want to be able to have a little bit of a lip in the front so I can add some other embellishments. I did need to take a tumbling tower block and glue that to the back just for some extra support. I have a little bit of this red and white butcher's twine from the Dollar Tree left over. So I just added some hot glue and I'm just going to wrap it around probably 5 or 6 times just on the top portion of that ornament holder. That's just going to add a little bit of whimsy to this project. Next, I decided to take a little bit more of that butcher's twine and just glue it in the little grooves here that you can see on the ornament, just to add some little texture and a little color. And I think this is really cute. I probably should have used the Starbond glue for this area as well because I didn't want to have a big glob of hot glue everywhere. I was able to do it with a tiny little bit of hot glue and it did stick. But in hindsight, as I'm editing, I'm thinking about using Starbond glue again. I got a new pack of bottle brush trees that I found on Amazon, really inexpensive and bunch of different sizes. So I'm going to take these trees. I've got 2 sizes from this new pack, and then I'm going to use a couple of them from the Dollar Tree. They have the gold bases, but I'm okay with that. It still looks fairly similar. So I'm just going to be adding some of these little trees along the front. Then I decided to grab 2 of these little cutout reindeer, and I'm going to glue those on as well. I'll have the link to the bottle brush trees down in my description box. I think I'm going to be grabbing myself another box of them too. To break up some of the brown on the base, I'm going to use this red and white gingham ribbon. This is from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to glue it around the front and the sides. I added a couple of pine cones, some greens, and a few berries to the top, and I think this is super cute. You'll have to let me know what you think about this one. This year, I'm going to be making myself some brand new Farmhouse rustic wood ornaments, and I'm going to take you along for the ride. For these two, I'm using some cutout wooden stars. I believe I got these at Michael's as well because they came in a pack of 5. I've got some gingham napkins here that are black and white. I grabbed those at the Dollar Tree last year, and I've been using them every once in a while. So I'm going to just use the glue stick and add these napkins to the stars. I trimmed off the excess paper, and now I'm just using some sandpaper to clean up the edges. I'm using these really cool nippers to trim off the little star at the top of these Christmas trees. They were part of a garland pack and came with a string, but I don't want to use any of that, so I'm just going to create a nice little point at the top of the tree. Now I'm just going to take some of that leftover green stain that I made for my first project, and I'm going to give them a nice coat. I wanted to create a layered effect on these stars, so I'll be gluing the Christmas tree right on top of the star, and then I'll be taking some more of these little reindeer cutouts and gluing those on top of the tree. I just think this layered look just makes everything look a little bit more high end. For the hanger, I'm taking 3 different sizes of beads and then some of the thin twine that you can get at the Dollar Tree in the automotive section. I think it comes 3 to a pack. Anyway, I'm going to fold the twine in half and create a loop at the top. And this is what I'm going to start feeding through the beads. The largest one at the bottom, the medium, and then the small. And I'm not going to pull it all the way to the end because of course then they're going to fall out. I'm just going to eyeball how much of the length I need, and then I'll tie a knot underneath the beads to make sure they don't slide off. Then I'm going to just push the deep beads all the way down to the end of the knot, and that will become my hanger. I'm going to use the knot and some hot glue to make it stick to the top of the star. Then I'm going to add a tiny little buffalo check ribbon, red and white, that you can get at the Dollar Tree, and a little mini pine cone. And I think these are so adorable. This is a board that I found at the thrift store many years ago. This is probably the 3rd or 4th time that I'm upcycling it. If it doesn't sell, I take everything apart and start over. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the bottom portion of this. It's about 2 inches. And I want this to kind of mimic what's on the top. It was already painted sort of a creamy color. I repainted it white a while ago, and I'm going to just freshen up that top portion as well with a new coat of paint. I created this printable using Google Drawing, and of course it will be available on my website as a free printable for you. I love the old-fashioned kind of paper look that I put on the back of it. And I put this all together and then print it off all at once. I'm just going to trim off any of the white edges and then just use a glue stick to put it onto the board. I've got these little gingerbread men cutouts that I got at my local dollar store. I'm going to give them a stain of dark walnut. I'm going to use some hot glue and glue 3 of them down onto the white space. I'm going to put one in the center and then center the other 2 on either side. I grabbed some white tulip puffy paint. I'm going to give these their little embellishments, and I think this turned out really sweet. To embellish this board, I'm going to take a piece of burlap and kind of pinch it together and then hot glue it in place. This is just going to give me a base for everything else that I'm going to be gluing on. Now I'm just going to add different types of greenery. I've got some of these pine branches. I'm going to use some green boxwood and some berries, some pine cones, and I'm going to finish it off with a sweet little burlap bow. I think this board will look really nice hanging in a kitchen or even on a countertop, just standing against the wall with some little gingerbread things in front of it. I love how this one turned out, and I hope you like it too. I just love bottle brush trees and I totally love spindles. So I grabbed a whole bunch of these little bits and pieces of wood. I'm going to put them all together and make some really cute mini spindle bottle brush trees. I'm using a drawer pull. I'm using just another hunk of wood. And these spindles were something that were gifted to me by Barb from Tinker Decor and More out of Belleville, Ontario. They have a wonderful store. I'll leave a link to their store down in my description box because you can definitely purchase some items online. I'm using a small drill bit, just a little bit bigger than the wire at the end of these bottle brush trees. And I'm going to just drill a hole at the top of each of the spindles because then when I add some hot glue, I'll be able to push that little wire right down into it and they'll be really sturdy. Because 2 of these had different colors of wood, I decided to give the white bottle brush tree a black base, but I'm not giving it a solid color. I'm just going to give it one coat just to blend all of the wood textures in together. And for the other one that is like this, I'll paint that one white. These turned out so stinking cute. I just might have to make some more. These wooden trees I got at my local Dollarama store. They do have a self-standing base. I pulled it off because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with them at this point. But what I did know was that I needed to sand off all of that color. I'm not using any blue, and my idea for these is to have a little bit of the raw wood showing. The stars on the top here are so glittery, and I'm not really into the glitter, but everything sanded off super easy. Now, after thinking that I was going to leave them the raw wood, I decided to go ahead and paint them white all the way, front, back, sides, everything. And I should have left them the raw wood because I really liked that. I think my thinking here was because the front looked different than the back, and I wanted to duplicate the same thing on both sides. So giving it a same color base is probably the best idea anyway. I cut out a triangle shape just a little bit smaller than the tree itself. And then I took the fabric and I just kind of ran my finger along the edge just to kind of tuft out some of those threads and make it a little bit more rustic. I'm going to start by gluing down one side of the tree just a little further in from the white as you see me doing here. When I get to the other side, I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of pushing it in towards the center a little bit. That's going to leave me with an open pocket. You can see here that I can fit my finger in there. I'm going to take some pillow stuffing. This is just something that I have on hand. If you need some, the best place to get it is at Walmart. You can just grab a regular pillow for sleeping and then just use it. You'll get tons of it out of that. I'm just using a pencil with on the eraser side to gently push up the stuffing to the top portion of the tree, and then I'm going to glue down the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side of this tree. And for my second tree, I'm just going to use a different pattern of fabric and do the same thing. So I decided to put the trees back on their original stand, but I'm taking some of these blocks, and these pink ones are really hard to paint, but these come in a bag from the Dollar Tree. You can get a couple different sizes. I'm going to make these into little gifts. I'm going to paint one white, one green, and one red. While I had my red paint out and on the brush, I'm just going to give the base a little bit of color, just going around the outside frame like you see me doing here, leaving that regular wood grain down on the bottom. Once the cubes were dry, I'm going to go ahead and add some jute rope or twine to this one. And you can see I've got some other colors of twine as well. And I'm just going to put the jute on just like you would a regular gift wrap with a bow. I'm just going to tie it in a knot at the top though, because tying a tiny little bow like that is just too much for my fingers. Anyway, once these are all done, I'm going to glue them to the bottom portion of the trees, and this project is done. I'm starting this project with this wooden cutout Christmas tree. This was an ornament that I got at Michael's when they had their buy one, get one free. And I'm going to use some water and some green paint and make a stain. So I spritzed it with some water first. That just makes it easier. You don't have to mix up any stain and mess up a bowl or whatever. So just putting some water on it and then putting the depth of stain you want. You can make it lighter or darker, whatever suits you. I've got a deer cutout and I'm using my dark walnut gel stain for this one. I do have some water already in this gel stain to make it a little bit looser, and it actually goes a lot further if you do that. You can add again as much or as little stain as you want. For the box, I started with this gray and brownish kind of stain that I already have pre-mixed, but I did find that it wasn't dark enough. So I ended up pulling out my antique wax and using that on top of it, and I really liked that shade a lot better. When you're using a wax, whether it's an antique or a white or a clear, you always have to make sure that you wipe it down, because otherwise it's going to stay sticky and tacky. So I just work in sections and I put some on and then use a paper towel or a rag or a tissue, whatever you happen to have on hand, just to wipe off the excess. I decided to put some scrapbook paper on the inside of the box, and I wanted all of my little pieces to pop. So I'm using, it's white and it has little black stars in it, and I thought that would be a perfect background for this. I'm just using my glue stick to put it in. Next, I'm just going to be cutting out some little pieces of wood. What I want to do is be able to raise up each of my little figures so they're a little bit higher up off the bottom than the last piece. And this turns out really cute. I'm just taking these little snips and I'm just going to be trimming off some of this piece of garden stake. You can use popsicle sticks or wood shim or anything you have on hand. First, I'm going to glue my Christmas tree in, and he doesn't stand straight up, which is perfect because I love it on an angle like this. I think it's very whimsical. Next, I'm going to be putting my deer in, but I am going to give him a couple of pieces on the back just to raise him up a wee bit off the Christmas tree. But before I can set him inside, I've got to glue down my little circle snowflake ornament piece, and that's going to be going in the top right corner. That one is just a whitewash kind of effect. I used just some white paint and gave it sort of a snowy kind of look. Just very simple. So here goes my deer. I'm just putting some glue on those little pieces of wood that I put on the back of him, and then he's going to sit right on top of the Christmas tree. For the little gingerbread, he's going to get 2 of these tiny wood pieces. That's going to raise him up ever so slightly higher than the deer. For the stain on the gingerbread man, I used a color called honey brown. That's my favorite pumpkin color to use, and I just used the water with it to make a stain. Here's the star. I'm putting that on the outside frame right on top of the tree. The stain I used for that was just some silver acrylic paint, again, just watered down a little bit. I also stained some of these wood letters that I picked up at my local dollar store. I'm pretty sure that Dollar Tree has them as well. I did stain them in red. They do turn out a little pinkish in color, but I'm okay with that because it makes it look aged and old. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue the word Merry right along the bottom of the frame. This piece can stand on its own, and it also comes with a hanger on the back, but I decided to add my own hanger just using some of this burlap ribbon. I think it looks really nice and rustic, just using some hot glue to glue it down on each side. I was really excited about how this turned out. I love all those little wood cutout pieces, and I was really lucky to find everything that I needed. Let me know what you think of this one. I
I hope you enjoyed these Christmas projects using wood. I love working with wood, and Christmas is the best time to use it because it makes everything look rustic and primitive. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.